But Joe Biden and Donald Trump are poised to have the biggest day of their primary campaigns. Super Tuesday is expected to move them to the brink of winning their party's presidential nominations and set up a historic rematch. Hundreds of delegates are at stake with Super Tuesday elections being held in 16 states and one territory, the biggest haul for either party on a single day. And despite polls showing voters don't want this year to be identical to 2020, Biden and Trump have easily repelled challengers and effectively sealed the contest. And for more on Super Tuesday, we're joined live by John Mysick, politicals editor at masslive.com. John, good morning, and thank you very much for taking time to speak with us. Okay, so other than the obvious, what is at stake here?
Bakari, you summed it up pretty well in your opening there. And there are literally hundreds of delegates across 16 states and one territory who are up for grabs today. Barring some unforeseen circumstance, it looks like former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden will romp to victory in these contests. You know, that leaves former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who is still in the running, still insisting that she's going to stay in the race. There may be a possibility for her to gain some ground. She may even pick up a state, but the math for her to the path to the nomination is very daunting.
Okay, so speaking of, the path is daunting, but then there's all of the legal hurdles which Donald Trump faces. Is she just kind of waiting to slide in there, waiting for a chance?
That could conceivably happen. We will see how long she can stay in, how long the money will hold out. The Supreme Court is expected to rule pretty soon on former President Trump's immunity claims, but even then, that case might not be heard well into the summer, and it might not be decided until closer to Election Day, or perhaps even after Election Day. So even with all of the multiple troubles that former President Trump faces, and even despite the deep voter ambivalence about those, again, it's a very daunting path for Nikki Haley. That said, if Trump is convicted and is unfit to serve, Haley could potentially hold herself up as an alternative, but it's all going to depend on, I think, on the rhythms of the calendar.
Okay, so John, I don't get it. Voters are saying they don't want to repeat, but that's kind of what we have going on here. What is today indicative of?
Yeah, so the funny thing about primaries, Bakari, is that these are subsets of the electorate. The voters who tend to turn out in primaries are the most enthusiastic. They're the base, they're the grassroots, they're the so-called super voters who have voted in elections all of their lives. Primary election turnouts tend to be 25, 30%. General election turnouts, by contrast, can be as high as 70 or 80%. So these races today, again, are being determined by really a minority of the American electorate. And again, these are the people who are the most engaged. So you contrast that against the polling data of the Americans who say they don't want a rematch, but you have these intense grassroots supporters who are coming out, who in a lot of ways are sort of making that decision for them.
Okay, and speaking of pretty much every would-be competitor besides Nikki Haley for Donald Trump, they've bowed out. And then there's Biden and the case of his age and whether he's still fit for this. Democrats, they don't really have any other choice.
That's basically true. Representative Dean Phillips, Democrat from Minnesota, a Democrat from Minnesota, is still on the running. The author Marianne Williamson, although she effectively has no campaign, will appear on many state ballots. The other challenge, Bakari, and this is a more pressing one for the president, in Massachusetts and other states, critics of the administration's policy in the Israel war against Hamas are pressuring Democratic voters to vote non-committed or no preference as a way of sending a protest message to the president about the administration's prosecution of that war. They're hoping to deny him delegates in some key races. So there's sort of this potentially damaging push for Biden by some of these grassroots activists.
Okay, politics editor at masslive.com, John Mysick. You know what? You're speaking about Super Tuesday today, but we're going to be talking to you a lot more over the next few weeks and months. Thanks, John.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.